Dear participants, dear speakers, I would like to present, to welcome to this our meeting workshop. This workshop is dedicated for us. This is a place where we meet from one side participants who has interest how to enter UK market, from other side experts and in their everyday field, from in tax area, in IP property management, in accounting, in legal perspective area. So this is a place where we met, and please show your contacts later on to contact. I'm inviting participants to contact if they have interest to enter UK market. Of course, this meeting is not just at the moment. We will share our information to our all networks, and I would like to proceed my short presentation and intro. This is project SMEBeyond. Later on, my colleague Leish from Clean Cluster will proceed more detail about this project. But in general, this is a project helping companies which operating in green blue economy, helping them to find partners in different markets. In this specific case, we are focused on UK market. And we invited to share experience, to present their organizations and contacts, to collaborate later on, our partners from UK. Let me say that we will start from strategies for finding business partners in UK, and we'll start Mr. Mark Shepherd. Later on, another topic which will cover banking, legal, and IP perspective, tax. We will start from Peter King, later on Hannah, then Dave, and finally Tom. And we will try to finalize. Maybe will be some open questions to discuss. So please proceed, my colleague Leish, about project SMEBeyond.
Yes. So good morning, everybody. My name is Laís Valença. I'm a project manager here at Clean, and we are the lead partner for the SMEBeyond project, which is a project funded by the Interreg South Baltic. As Giedros explained a bit, this project focuses on supporting and creating tools for blue and green SMEs in the region, the South Baltic region, to expand the international efforts, not only for the South Baltic region, but also EU region and outside EU region. So we are doing now a series of webinars focused on different markets, so to help our the SMEs from this region to get a little bit more perspective on what are the procedures, what are the steps to if they are interested to join a new market. As you can see, we have partners from all over the South Baltic region: Denmark, Germany, Poland, Lithuania, and Sweden. The webinars are not the only activities that we'll be performing in these 3 years of project. We're also going to do matchmaking, delegations, cross-border collaboration between SMEs, and as I said, development of tools to support internationalization. The project just started now. We've been now with like around 8 months of project so far. So, but more activities will come in the future.
Yes, so I suppose we can proceed with our first speaker, Mr. Mark. So please start presentation and share your insight.
Thank you very much, Graduate, and good morning, everybody. My name's Mark Shepherd. I am with Midas Inward Investment Agency, and we are the front door to Greater Manchester, which is the biggest, largest economy or city region economy outside of London. Yeah, before I get into the slides, I just wanted to give a little, very brief bit of background. I only have 10 minutes. And so I want to try and make the most of that by talking about the UK and our sort of tips and advice as to how to integrate and settle and become a sustainable, strong business in UK as quickly as possible. So a very quick background for myself. I'm very passionate about renewables and green tech. I actually started quite a long time ago now, probably about 15, 16 years ago. I was involved in an offshore wind farm project from just above North Wales. And I was actually a part of the crew and a skipper, skippering high-speed transfer vessels out to offshore wind farms, taking technicians back and forth right through the winter. And so I've got a very sort of hands-on experience of renewables and the green industry. I've also had some experience of setting up myself overseas. So I went and set up a new division for a company back in 2003, quite a long time ago, over in Australia. And so I've experienced some of the challenges as to different planning and different regulations and culture, all sorts of different barriers that you face when you try and set up and expand overseas. So yeah, without further ado, I will try and share my presentation now. So please bear with me. Okay. Is that full screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
But we can read it. But if you put maybe this button slideshow, maybe it shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I am trying to click on slideshow and it's not happening. Ah, there we go. It's all right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So a quick first slide on yeah, apologies. Why is that not working? Hmm.
It was quite good quality of not in presenting mode, but we can read and then see.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if this will work. Ah, there we go. Okay. So can you still see that all right?
Yes.
Okie dokie. So Midas is the Inward Investment Agency for Manchester, and this is what I really want to talk to everybody about. It is something that you'll find in every good-sized city, region, or city within the UK, and it's definitely what I would advise is the first port of call. So what you're going to hear about later on through the webinar is exact experience in speaking to legal, speaking to accountancy, recruitment specialists. You can go to all of that, but this is the value that you can get out of an investment agency where you get that single point of contact. you get the experience of people that have worked and run businesses and know everything and everybody within that area that can connect you up really, really quickly. So there's huge value there. It's very confidential. So if you have you're protecting IP or you're very early stages and you don't want anybody to know what you're doing, everything is highly confidential. And it's fully funded, so there's no expense to you at all. And I know that's really, really, really important for SMEs and those who've just started trading. And then what we also do is give you sort of impartial advice. So we will connect you with people that are not selling a specific service or not selling a specific consultancy, so you know that you're not being sold down one particular track. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I could give for a business entering the UK. Just some quick facts about Manchester. So I won't dwell on this slide for very long, but we've got 3 major universities here. We've got a big sort of 80 billion economy, which
Mark,
is...
I don't think we can see the slides changing, so...
Okay, how's that?
It's still the first slide.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I'm clicking on the slides. I can see this slide. This is really quite frustrating.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's a
if you just
nice picture of Manchester. But...
Yeah.
If you just leave, maybe not in the slide mode, but the way what it was before, Mark, we could see it. We could read it very clear.
Yeah, and what happened then was I couldn't change the slide, so I couldn't. Oh, here we go. How's that?
Yes.
Now it
yes,
works.
good. Yes.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so there's just some very quick facts there. The ones that I wanted to draw your attention to were the size of the economy, which a lot of people don't know about Manchester. And we've got really high growth, and especially in green tech. So I know that might be of interest to some of you guys who are all in that kind of space of sustainability, green tech, renewables. And we're very well connected. So we've got the biggest airport outside of London as well. We're looking at expansion there, and there's all sorts of opportunities around sustainable aviation fuel and hydrogen there as well. There's so much to tell you. I'm really having to go at high speed here to get through these slides. So let me move on. A couple of little bits of information here on Manchester as well. So these are the kind of things that if and when you do look to expand over to the UK market, we can give you this and a huge amount more information and data and insights. And as I said, this is what you really need at that initial stage. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but it's just to highlight that we're genuinely leading the UK. We started the industrial revolution here in Manchester, and the mayor and the combined authority are really passionate about driving the green economy and the decarbonisation sort of next stage revolution from Manchester. So there's a huge amount happening here. And we see that as we see the foreign direct investment, the FDI, is a real important part of that. We need overseas firms to bring their innovation and their technology to us, and we'll support them to grow within the region. So these are the key stages that we would work with the business as they came to UK and wanted to set up. So right from the the 2 key stages, I think for us, are scoping and mobilization. That scoping stage is that you really don't know what you're looking to do and where, so and how you might do that. So we can organize a visit and that's my first piece of advice, would be to actually physically come here. We'll do a lot of planning up front to make sure you've got a lot of data and any kind of analytical pieces of research that you need to be done. As long as you have the intention of setting up something in Manchester, and employing people locally or adding to the economy in some way, then we'll put that work in early stages with you. And part of that will be, for example, a full day's meetings organised, all for you, all set up, ready to go. So an example would be I've got a US company coming over next week, and this will be their second visit, and they will have another full day's meeting set up, look, with impartial financial advice. We're looking to put a package together with potentially some equity involved, so investors. We've got a fund in central Manchester that can access, and they'll have a full 2 days of industrial property viewings across the city. So that's all organised and all set up by ourselves. So I think hopefully you're getting the idea that working with somebody like us will save you a huge amount of time and expense. And then the next stage, I've just gone over time, so apologies. If I can just finish off, mobilisation stage is where we're really getting serious. We might have looked and decided on a property, but then that's when all the planning and regulations come in, and connecting you with the council, and looking at recruitment, how you're going to find the people, accessing different types of finance for that sort of startup phase, making sure that there's not too much sort of drain on your finances as a business. And then very, very key, embedding you quickly into the local ecosystem is so important. And that's, again, where we can do that. So we'll connect you in with all of the right people that you need to speak to. I think that's as far as I'm concerned. There's a couple of other points as well. We work with you, continue to work and support with you once you're here. But I'd say wherever you do go in the UK, there are going to be differences in things like business rates relief, and some areas will help you with national insurance contributions relief, and all sorts of different ways to reduce your costs and reduce that impact as you set up your new division or you relocate or your expansion. So it's really, really important that wherever you do choose in the UK, you connect up with somebody like ourselves. There'll be our equivalent in Birmingham, Liverpool, Newcastle, all over the place, and get that conversation going early on, and they'll be really pleased to talk to you and support you. Okay. So I've gone over my time. I'm going to be quiet now and stop sharing. And back to you, Flavius.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. So, in conclusion, yes, in every city of UK there are quite different ecosystems. So there are, but there are organizations like Invest in Manchester that helps to find partners or with advices how to start.
Correct.
Yes. So next will be topic experience sharing, and I would like to invite Peter to start from banking and financial perspective. So I will ask our audience to with attention to listen, because Mr. Peter is going to speak, yes, and of course we will record, but he will try to give us some insights speaking. Yes, so
Great.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So just to introduce myself, so I'm Peter King. I'm Director for Business Banking at Oak North. So Oak North are a digital neobank here in the UK. We've been around for around 10 years, and we support scaling commercial businesses, and some with particularly complex needs, and some of that comes with businesses looking to set up in the UK and needing the right banking partner in that sense. I'm not going to share any slides today, but what I will do is I'm going to go through some of the challenges that are there and to be aware of when looking to set up in the UK as a business when it comes to opening and operating a bank account and working with the right banking partner. And then what I'll do is I'll just share some things to bear in mind and things that will potentially make it easier in terms of finding the right banking partner, and then making sure that you can set up a bank account and work with the right banking partner when you do set up in the UK. So obviously some of you may have set up in the UK already, some of you are looking to set up in the UK, but due to the sort of UK banking regulatory environment, it is traditionally and notoriously very difficult and can be quite challenging to open and operate a bank account for overseas owned businesses. So obviously there will be different routes to setting up in the UK, but in order to open a bank account, the first step and the easiest step would be to have a UK limited company. That will be the first step in order to try and make it easier to have that entity based in the UK to open a bank account with. Obviously, most of the time the ownership will be sat overseas, and because of that, with the regulator, there is more ongoing due diligence and more challenges in regards to onboarding those sorts of businesses. So it's to bear in mind that means that the process can be a lot longer. There might not be as many providers, many banks in the UK that are able to onboard these types of businesses, and sometimes there can be a slightly more expensive tariff in order to build in that extra regulatory requirements that banks require in order to support businesses with overseas ownership and setting up in the UK. However, there are plenty of solutions out there, and there are things that you can look when you're looking to set up in the UK to make it easier. So I guess the first thing to bear in mind is, if possible, it is always that UK entity that is set up, the UK limited company, if possible, to have a UK director. Obviously, this is only just one part of the landscape and the decision making when it comes to setting up in the UK. But from a banking perspective, most banks will find it easier to support a business setting up in the UK if there is a UK resident as a director. Even if there's overseas ownership, there are non-UK directors as well. A UK director, from a regulatory point of view, means that it is deemed to be positive from a bank perspective. So it's something to bear in mind when you're looking at how to set up in the UK. Obviously, and there'll be lots of different structures and ownerships when it comes to setting up in the UK, and the majority of that will normally sit overseas for businesses moving to the UK, which is fine, but it's something to bear in mind to have all of those documents to hand, have them. UK banks will need to have and need to verify all shareholders and all owners of 10% or more. So that's the regulatory requirement in the UK. Sometimes they might need to go lower than 10%, but as a general rule, 10% shareholders and above will always need to be identified as part of the bank onboarding process, even if they're not going to be operating the bank account themselves. So it's important to have the sort of the ownership documents and have all of the key, what we call KYC, or know your customer documents, for the key individuals within the business, to have them available at hand for the bank account application when it comes to it as well. Something also to bear in mind as well, which will, because of the regulatory challenges and extra, as I say, regulations that are imposed on the banks for these types of businesses. Because of that, it's also worth bearing in mind in terms of the size of inward investment as part of setting up that business here in the UK. Typically, because of the commercial viability for that bank with the extra challenges that they have, they might have set eligibility criteria, whether it be regards to the size of the inward investment or the expected turnover through the accounts through the UK operations. So it's something to bear that in mind as well, and just think, actually, when you are setting up in the UK, what will be going through the UK subsidiary or the UK entity, and as I say, the more that goes through can mean that it can make it easier from a UK bank account application as well. With UK banking, there are the landscape in general. There are a number of different banks. We have obviously fintechs and tech banks all the way through to the larger, well-known global banks with a high street presence as well. What can be the case is that if you're setting up a bank account for the first time, it can be useful to start with maybe a digital bank to start with. That might not be your banking partner long term as you sort of grow into the UK, but typically they might be easier to set up with in the first place. And then, as I say, it's then important that not only that you review your banking as you go forward, as you change and as you grow with your UK footprint, to make sure that you then have the right ongoing banking partner as well. So, just I guess in summary, this was to make you aware of some of the challenges that can be aware when setting up in the UK with bank accounts. There are sort of advisors and consultancy firms that can support with those bank account applications, because if you are based abroad before you're setting up in the UK, they can be particularly useful in order to liaise with the banks and help with that onboarding process, which can be onerous or challenging with particular banks if you don't have a point of contact with them. So ourselves at Oak North, we're always happy to look at applications for businesses that are looking to set up in the UK. As I said, we typically support businesses that are sort of scaling. We do a lot with the green and clean tech industry, and we're very sustainably focused as a bank. So we're always happy to have a conversation and see whether we're the right banking partner, or as I said, there are plenty of options out there in the UK to support, but it's worth making sure that you've got your right setup before you look to apply for the bank account. So hopefully that was helpful to understand the landscape with banking when you're setting up in the UK.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. I know that you have very limited time to be with us, yes, but if will be some questions later on, I will send you.
Please do.
Yeah, so thank you for your insight that banking financial perspective is very important to take into account even in the stage when we are planning to enter the UK market. So thank you very much for these insights. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. And as I say, please do feel free to share my details as well, and always happy to have any conversations with anyone that has any questions as well.
Yes, thank you, Peter. So let's move to Hannah. So Hannah will present legal perspective. So floor is yours.
Okay, fantastic. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see that slide, and hopefully I don't have any tech problems. There has been a wee bit of strange tech happening on my end as well, but hopefully we'll get there. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Smethurst. I'm a solicitor at Thornton's. We are one of Scotland's largest full-service law firms and one of the oldest. I think we've just passed 165 years old. We do serve everywhere in the UK. We also have clients who are outside of the UK, wanting to move into the UK, wanting to move out of the UK. I'm actually from Manchester, so definitely supporting Mark, trying to convince you all to move over there. What full service means from a legal perspective is that we offer a whole range of services, both for people, so that's your kind of wills, your estates, personal injury, divorce, that side of things. And then we also have a whole company focused side of the business, which is where I sit, which is corporate, employment, disputes, immigration, that whole thing. And that means that we can offer support for your business the whole way through, and also for you as individuals. I personally sit in what we call our ventures and innovations team, which is startups, scale-ups, small to medium-sized businesses specifically, but we do follow the companies the whole way through from idea through to exit. And you'll just move through different members of our team who have different specialties. What I'm hoping to give you in about 10 minutes is a very brief whistle-stop tour of things that you should bear in mind when you are looking to set up a company in the UK when you're already operating internationally. So focusing on, these international group company structures, if you've already got your company set up somewhere else, whether it's America, whether it's Europe, if you're coming over to the UK, you've really got, largely speaking, two options. The first one is a branch, which is the extension of your parent company. So you've still got all of your companies set up wherever you've set it up. That could be in Lithuania and Romania, and you just set up a different location, but it is not a separate company, and that smaller branch just sits in the UK. Your other option, which is the most popular for companies that are looking to grow and take investment and really move with the UK economy, is a subsidiary, which is a completely separate company. It is its own legal entity, but it is entirely controlled by the parent company. So you do have that kind of structure that you quite often see on slides like this. I'm not going to read fully off this slide because I know that we are tight on time, but this is a very brief summary of the differences between a branch and a subsidiary. Ultimately, the right structure will depend on a whole range of factors, which is what we are here to kind of discuss with you individually, including the service or the business that you're providing, the extent to which you need a local presence. If you need to be based in the UK and run things separately in the UK, then a subsidiary is going to allow you to do that because it has local management, it is based in the UK, it ring fences those tax liabilities. If you don't need that, then the overall costs of setting up a branch are lower, it is still directly controlled, and it's taxed in the same way as that parent company. So there are pros and cons of each of them. Most of our clients who are looking to go this route internationally into the UK market do set up a subsidiary. And one of the key reasons for that is that a limited liability company, which is what a subsidiary is, has financial statements for that company, but the financial statements of the parent company, of the kind of main first company, are ring fenced. They are kept separate in most situations, and because it's that distinct legal entity, that offers more flexibility and more privacy. So a very, very brief introduction to limited liability companies in the UK. You do have, again, this legal protection for owners and shareholders. So if you set up a subsidiary in the UK, you can, to a large extent, ring fence both the assets of the holding company and the assets of the owners and the directors. And so if you are operating with anything that's potentially high risk, a limited liability company offers you a little bit more risk protection. There's also that, as we mentioned, flexibility in management and tax. It's really good as an investment vehicle if you're looking to move into the UK and you've got people who say, we want to support your UK journey. You can have discussions with them around which company they're investing in and then how you manage that from a tax perspective. It is worth noting that annual accounts and reports are public facing. So that's something that we do talk in some detail with our clients about as to what's included in those, and then we refer them to a tax advisor or an accountant to help actually put those together. So if you're going down that route and you decide that you want to set up a subsidiary, the key thing that you'll need to set up in the UK is a UK registered address. So that address needs to be in the jurisdiction that you're incorporating the company in. Across the UK, again, broadly speaking, as many legal things are, it is pretty cohesive. You have Scottish companies, you have England and Wales companies, you have Northern Ireland, and then you kind of branch out into the Republic and Europe. But England and Wales and Scotland especially are pretty cohesive in a kind of company law perspective. But if you are setting up an English company, your registered address will need to be in England or Wales. If you want to set up a Scottish company, it needs to be in Scotland. That physical address is the official address of your company. It can't be a PO box or just a postal address. It needs to be a physical address and is a public record of where the company is registered. Some directors like to use their residential address, their home address, because they then know that they're going to get all of the posts that they need to get. We recommend that people use a commercial address. So we offer it, many law firms offer it, accountants offer it, that you can use that as a service address, as a commercial address, so that your personal address isn't widely known. Other than that, if you can find that registered address in the UK, everything else flows pretty easily from that. You need at least one director and one shareholder, but as has previously been mentioned, that director doesn't need to be based in the UK. It is easier from when you've got all of these AML checks if you are, but the key thing is that UK registered address. You will need to look into company secretarial points. This is not the very stringent approach that some places have. I know some states in America require that you have an official company secretary appointed. That is not a requirement in the UK. You just need to make sure that you have someone responsible, and that could be one of your directors, who files the relevant forms with Companies House. So as a director, very high level summary of directors' duties, very similar across Europe. Acting within your powers, promoting the company's success, acting fairly, skill and diligence, all of those points. The key difference that you have with the UK and other countries is Companies House and the records that are very public and easily accessible on Companies House, which is surprisingly one of the reasons that we have that directors of smaller companies are cautious about being appointed as a director, because they know that it's very easy to find that information. And as a kind of show of how public facing Companies House is, if you were to Google or use any other search engine of anyone who is a director, if you have their full name or most of their name, one of the first records that will tend to come up is Companies House. So it is something to be aware of, that it is publicly facing. It has a lot of information on it. It's who, what, where, when, and how, everything to do with the company. If you issue shares, that's on Companies House. Obviously, there's commercial registers in Germany and France that are quite similar. We have found that from an investment perspective, the amount of records and the clarity on Companies House is a benefit. It is very attractive to investors because they can see very cleanly how the company is being run. In a sort of full circle moment, this is another reason why subsidiaries tend to work better for international companies, because all of this information is only for the subsidiary company. It is not for the kind of overarching parent company. So you only have to declare this information for the subsidiary company. And just to kind of rattle this through, obviously Peter's already touched on this and discussed it, but other considerations that you might want to consider when you're looking to move to the UK from a company perspective are, you don't need a UK bank account to set up a company in the UK. You need it in other countries. You do not need it in the UK, but you might struggle with kind of financial operations, entering into agreements once the company's running if you don't have one. So that's definitely worth getting advice on. There may or may not be some immigration questions depending on how you're operating your business, how much time you're spending in the UK. Once again, I will let the tax experts talk about tax, but there's different tax considerations around the different types of entity that you set up. So a subsidiary and a branch will be taxed and treated differently, and so that's probably a large consideration. And before you're expanding into the UK or setting up a new company in the UK, it's worth looking at the nature of any contracts that you want to enter into, especially if you're following UK law as an incentive for that. Then you probably want to also have a UK company to support that choice of jurisdiction. And I think, like everyone said, any questions that we don't get to today, please feel free to email me or reach out. I will stop sharing my screen now because I feel like I have taken up my full 10 minutes, but hopefully that was a useful summary.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your insights about different type of companies that it's possible to establish, but of course to take into account different different things like director, what and other tax registration and so on. So, of course, there are a lot of things to think about our participants, our audience. But if you will have questions, please contact Han and proceed collaboration. And next, let's go to IP perspective. So Dave, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. Just going to do the quick check just to make sure. Good. That's looking all right. So very good to meet you all. I am Dave Holt. I am a partner at Potter Clarkson. I'm also a solicitor. So sorry about that. You have two solicitors today. I'm lucky enough to work with Thorntons actually as a collaborating firm, but my specialism is in intellectual property. So some of you may be aware of intellectual property as an asset, some of you may not. So what I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of an oversight as to what intellectual property exists in the UK and generally how people use it. Most importantly, it's a business asset that we see obviously all of our clients using because we're an intellectual property firm, but the absolute majority of businesses in the UK will prioritise protecting, exploiting and mobilising that intellectual property to obtain the maximum benefit from establishing in that country. And there's a lot of things to think about. So I've tried to put in some slides with more explanation on this that you can refer back to later. But I'm going to give you an oversight on what most of our clients look to do. We're an international firm. We're across Europe and the UK, principally in Scandinavia. So we assist clients from all over the world, from individuals starting up through to multinational pharmaceutical corporations and industrial chemistry companies and similar. So starting at the top, I thought it'd be useful to give you an idea of intellectual property as it exists in the UK. This is generally pretty consistent across Europe. Actually, you'll find some of these will be really similar from territory to territory. There are a couple of changes in the UK that are just worth knowing about. So starting at the top, patents are technical inventions. They are how something works. The bargain that you make is that by protecting a particular invention, the state will give you a 20-year monopoly in the scope of the invention that you have come up with, which is set out in the claims. These will cover things like methods of manufacture, new products, maybe new chemical materials. In the clean tech space, this may be new operation of turbine blades, for example. We have a number of clients in Scotland who are working on wind energy, which is leading to a lot of new developments in that space. So patents are a technical invention. And your business may have some of these, it may have one or two of these, it may have all of these. So it's important to think about all of these rights in the round when you're thinking about your intellectual property that you have or you want to exploit. There is registered and unregistered designs. The easiest way to think about this is the aesthetic appearance of something. So registered designs can run from anything from a graphical user interface for an app or a software service or something similar. Registered designs, you can generally harmonize these across the entirety of the EU and actually globally under the Hague system. The main point of registered designs is, as I said, to protect the aesthetic appearance of a product. So if you design furniture, if you design speakers like Bang & Olufsen, for example, other speaker providers are obviously available. These types of things are the value in your product is what it looks like, not how it works. So the important thing is it does not cover the technical inventions. Those are covered by patents. One slightly unusual thing about the United Kingdom is that if you first sell a product which may be covered by design rights, so that might be a fashion item, it might be a furniture item, it may even be something as simple as a door handle. If you first sell that in the United Kingdom, you may benefit from unregistered design protection, which in the UK actually lasts for 15 years, which is substantially longer than in the rest of Europe, because unregistered design rights last less time in Europe. This is, I think, principally because we used to be focused more on physical manufacturing, and there was a lot of pressure in Europe to be focusing more on things like fashion and aesthetic appearances of items, which changed more quickly. So you do get much longer protection for unregistered rights in the UK than you would otherwise. So that's something to be careful of, and we'll get onto searching in a second, but it's something to be careful of because people's rights do last quite a long time. Trademarks are your brand, your logo. They are basically the things that people recognize your business in relation to. So, you know, your Nikes of this world, all of that type of thing, and the logos that go with it. In the UK, there is also a right called passing off, which means that even if you don't register your mark, if you have actual trade in the UK, you may be able to defend against copycats who are trying to pretend, by virtue of their colours, names, logos, that they are related to you as a business. So it's worth bearing in mind that you may, even if you don't have a registered mark, have some form of protection for your brand or the way you present your business. Copyright is normally music, documents, anything of that nature, artistic works, graphic designs, things like this. And trade secrets really are your confidential information, the things that are valuable to your business that you do not share with other people without protecting them. And again, this is a fairly uniform set of rights across Europe. But you'll need to think about all of these things when you're moving into the UK, because they all apply and all of our clients generally use these. So generally, IP is a really valuable asset. This is a study done by the EU IPO in 2021. There is a massive increase in value of businesses, generally speaking, when they hold intellectual property assets such as the ones I've just mentioned. So one important thing as well is, whilst also considering what you have, you also need to bear in mind that when you move into a new territory, you do not want to be infringing someone else's intellectual property, because that can lead to litigation, it can lead to conflict, and it may mean that you need to change your name, you need to change something about your product, or unfortunately, in some circumstances, you may not be able to trade at all. So searching for all of the registered rights that I've mentioned, patents, registered designs, trademarks, even domain names and company names, it's important to make sure you search properly before you enter a territory, including the UK, because you do not want to accidentally end up in litigation. You need to make sure that you are clear and free to operate, and that's where advisors such as ourselves can help you in doing those searches. So where can you search? Well, obviously you can use professional advisors, but you can also look at various public sites and records, and you can look through those as an initial search. I mean, search engines are a great place to start. Google Patents is also a reasonable resource, Espasnet and otherwise. I'll leave these on the slides for you so you can take a look and play around with these yourselves. But it helps give you a good landscape of what you might need to watch out for if you're looking to trade or transact in the UK, even if you've not gone as far as setting up a branch or even a full company, as Hannah suggested. Importantly as well, this is really most important in terms of intellectual property, like a trademark. If you're a franchisee or something, you need to make sure you have the permissions to use the relevant rights in the new territory you're going into. This is something that people often don't think about or forget about. You need to know whether you own the IP, and if you do, that's great. You can choose what to do with it. But particularly intellectual property assignments, licenses and collaboration agreements, just make sure your territories are right. This does get forgotten quite commonly, and it can be very common if you're used to trading in a separate territory and you want to try and expand. You may find that your licenses don't allow you to do that, and you would be acting in breach of a contract to do so. So bear that in mind as well as those registered rights. So if you've got your own intellectual property as well, one thing to do very carefully is plan for your entry into a new market by making sure that you've protected as best you can that entry. If you start trading in a territory and you use a name, for example, or you move in and start selling a product without having protected it first, the chances are you will not get any registered protection for that. And it may well be, in the case of a name, for example, someone else may choose to try and register it themselves and then prevent you from using it in future. So there's a few things to think about I've put out on this slide. Have you got coverage? Have you got protection for your names, your intellectual property? Have you got the right domain names? What protection do you actually need? What are you going to sell in? What are you going to do? Are you providing services? Do you need to protect your goods? Think about all these things when you're thinking about entry into a new territory. And obviously, if you need to change your name, change something about what you're doing because you've searched, found a problem, try and plan this in advance, because it is much more expensive to solve that problem than it is to deal with it in advance. And then finally, there are ways of entering a territory without physically entering a territory or starting a business. Bear in mind that actually you can trade in the UK, for example, through a partner, through collaboration, through licensing. You can co-develop businesses, you can co-develop products. You can use someone in the UK as a distributor who's on the ground. You know, going back to what we heard at the beginning, you know, if you have a partner who knows the territory very well, this can make your entry much easier. So it's really worthwhile thinking about what intellectual property assets you might have and whether that's a really good way of dipping your toe into the market, seeing whether that's something that would be good for you, work with a trusted partner to start with, and you can perhaps then move in more force later. And this is very common for things that our international clients do as well. So very common. And you can also get third-party investment if somebody wants to work with you in the UK as well. And it's particularly helpful if you've got those intellectual property assets. So this is obviously a really complex area. It's a very high-level summary. I think our contact details will go around as well. Always very happy to discuss this if these things are of interest, even if it's just working out what intellectual property you may have and how you might want to use it. But I hope that's useful. You'll get the slides, I think, in retrospect on this, so you can review those. I put a bit more information in there for you. So hopefully that's been helpful, and thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Dave, very much. There are a lot of things to think about before entering UK market related to intellectual property. So let's go and proceed with the tax perspective. Dear Tom, floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully the slides will load on the screen, but it doesn't look like they are. Oh, there we go. Excellent work. How do I make that actually work? So is that showing properly? Forgive me.
Yes,
No?
fine, good.
Fine. We'll work with that, I think. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending. Just a quick note about who I am and who Gravita are. So I'm a tax partner at Gravita, which is a firm of accountants, auditors, and tax advisors in London. But we also have offices in Oxford, and then down in the southwest, Exeter and Bristol, as well as a place in Essex called Ilford. And we're growing all the time. We're 500-600 people, and we offer all those services on the right-hand side of the screen. I have the honour of being a UK tax representative on the International Tax Committee of something called DFK, which is our international association. All decent-sized accounting firms are a member of some sort of international organisation, and it allows us to help clients who are coming into the UK because they've got advisors in all over the planet who are helping them navigate coming in, and also to help our clients in the UK who are looking outwards, who are trying to build businesses and expand into other territories around the world. So we work with our friends from there, and our next international conference is in Edinburgh. So I'm looking forward to the golf as well as actually meeting all my friends and working with them on how to work better with our clients. So that's who we are and what we do. I'm a tax advisor, so I help people and businesses from all over the world navigate the UK tax environment, as messy as that can be. I'm slightly odd in the tax world because I do all taxes. I don't just focus on one particular area. But I'm very lucky to work in a business where there's another 80 or so of me we work together to help solve our clients' issues. So a lot of the things we touched on here, and tax is a very complicated area, and there's a lot to say, but a lot we talked about here today, things like intellectual property. There are people within my business who work on R&D tax credits. So the UK operates and offers a very valuable tax credit for R&D, and they're specialists in that area. So I know stuff, but they know it all, and therefore together we can help the clients maximise their return on investment in R&D, for example. Tax is front page news these days, as it usually is. Donald Trump and his tariffs, whether or not they exist tomorrow or the day after, who knows? Last 24 hours has been a bit of a ride, I think, for most people. And if you are selling or buying goods internationally, particularly if you're involved in the US, then it is very challenging. And I think it's important to recognise that. I think it's also important when working with our clients who are involved in that environment is to understand their supply chains, to look at them. Supply chains tend to grow organically. You meet someone, they sell a thing that you like, you buy it, you keep buying it, and you keep buying it in the same way. But tariffs apply across the world, and so it's worthwhile going back to those supply chains, looking at it and saying, well, can I get the same thing from the same person, but maybe in a different way, and so change the way in which the tariffs apply. I think, given what we're going through at the moment, it's very sensible for, if any of you are involved in that kind of world, then do look at it. Tariffs at the moment don't apply to services yet. Some countries withhold tax on services. So if you're in that industry, and there are certain jurisdictions around the world where they have withholding taxes that apply to services. India, for example, is a good one. So if you sell into India or anywhere in South America, then they will withhold tax. So on the services, so bear that in mind. If you're in that world, you may not get 100% of what you're billing. Anyway, so from a UK perspective, what to think about from a UK tax perspective when coming into the UK? Tax residence is a big one. Hannah mentioned, the different ways of entering the market. Well, at least two of them, branches in the UK company. The tax residence is really important, not necessarily of individuals in this case, but of the company itself. So, from a UK tax perspective, a company is tax resident if one of three things are true: it's set up here. If it trades through a UK permanent establishment, basically it does things in the UK through people with a place to do it in. Or, and this is the really important one, it's managed and controlled in the UK. Management controlled is directors. It's who has the power to make the company do stuff, right? And where they meet and where they are typically defines where that company is managed and controlled. For SMEs, they don't normally have that many directors. So if you are, a Swedish company, but you own the company and you decide to come and live in London, I don't know why you did it, but let's say you did. So you come and live in London, then that company, despite the fact it's Swedish, may actually become UK tax resident and be taxable in the UK on all of its profits. It still might be taxable in Sweden because of the rules in Sweden. You just end up in both worlds at the same time. This is quite common where people come to the UK, set up a business wherever they start from. They come to the UK to try and expand and build, but because it's a very small business with a number of people who actually manage and control it, when they come to the UK, they can create that problem for themselves. Now, things you can do about it, having local directors, making sure you have those meetings in the country from which you come from, but it is really important that you get that thought out. To follow on what Hannah was saying earlier as well, branches in the UK, they're taxed in the same way that companies are. They pay the same rates of tax. They have the same reliefs that are available to them. But you have to file the full accounts of the overseas company with HMRC, which means you're providing more information to the revenue in the UK than perhaps you want to. And in which case, I would always argue that use a UK company. There are some jurisdictions like Germany that like partnerships because of the way in which their local legislation and their rules work. But partnerships in the UK are transparent for tax purposes, almost always. So if they do something, they will be transparent. What does that mean? It means that the members or the partners, they are taxable on the underlying income of that partnership. And so they need to register and file taxes with the UK tax authorities. So if that is an overseas company, then an overseas company needs to file with the UK. So you have the same problem. What we typically say is, look, if you're going to use a partnership model, put a company underneath it. So you protect yourselves from this problem. Right, so that's tax residence. How do you come into the market? It's debt versus equity. What is the best way of doing this? Well, debt and equity have different characteristics in the UK. We don't have a debt to equity ratio, unlike say the States, which does. So you can put £1 share capital in and 100 million in debt. What we do have is a very favourable regime for what's called a participation exemption. So as the shareholder of a UK company, you can strip out cash through dividends, and if you're non-resident, you will not suffer UK tax on the dividends. We don't withhold tax on dividends. We do withhold tax on interest, and so if you charge interest on debt that you use to fund the UK business, then we will withhold tax at 20% on the interest, subject to double tax treaties, of which we have about 150 of those in the world, which can reduce it. And if the overseas entity or person sells the UK company, as long as that company doesn't have UK real estate as part of its asset classes, the overseas person will not pay tax in the UK. We don't charge non-residents capital gains. So that's the participation exemption. It is quite complicated, debt versus equity, the debt position particularly, simply because we have something called a corporate interest restriction, but it only applies when your UK debt is interest is more than £2 million. So you have to be pretty big before that starts causing a problem. So IP, to build on the back of the IP, is transfer pricing. So if you've got an overseas company which has got all the intellectual property, and you start a UK company which is going to exploit the IP which is held by the overseas company, then it will almost certainly pay some sort of license fee, right, which we call royalties. Royalties do attract withholding taxes. Again, it's 20%. Again, double tax treaties can step in and save the day, but you need to look at that and make sure you are aware of it. More importantly, the UK company is only going to get a deduction, right, against its profits for the license fee if the amount of money that's paid is market value. So you can't just mess around and strip out all the profits and pay it to Belize, which is where the IP may be held. You have to be very careful about what you're charging. What is the price of it? That's a complicated question, and one that you need to work with advisors such as ourselves to work out. But typically, it's what somebody else would pay for it. What would a third party pay? What would I pay to exploit that IP? It's also quite important when developing the IP, if it's developed in the UK, making sure that the contractual stuff, right, ensures that the IP itself goes back to where the IP is supposed to be. It doesn't rest in the UK unless you want it to. So that contractual stuff is super important, and make sure you work with lawyers on that. Finally, and I know we touched on it earlier, is compliance. The UK has a very strict compliance regime. You have to file things on time, you have to file them in the right way, and you have to pay taxes on profits at the right time, or you get in a bit of trouble. So when you are setting up in the UK, do talk to an accountant. Please talk to us if you want to, and we can help you not just with the setting all the stuff up. We can act as a registered office, which Hannah mentioned earlier. We can do that, but we can also make sure that you don't miss deadlines. Or if you do, it'll probably be your fault, not ours. And I think that's quite an important thing to do. There are penalties, there are fines if you fail, and worst case scenario, the company that you set up can be shut down. So it's important you get that right. Anyway, right. So as I said, tax is complicated. It's complicated everywhere. It's even getting complicated in Dubai. So please do reach out to someone like me in the UK, and we can help you navigate both entry, running, and then exit from the UK marketplace with your profits, so that you do it in the most efficient way possible. And then my marketing director, Charlotte, wouldn't let me leave unless I pointed this out. Please, take a picture or whatever you do with QR codes. There's a lot more information there. Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening, and back to you.
Yes, thank you, Tom. We took additional time, dear participants, but as Tom said, tax are complicated, so please, and not only tax, but of course on AP area and legal, banking, and so on. So, dear participants, if you will need, we will share contacts later on to proceed, because to enter UK market or other markets, it seems that we need several iterations with consultants like today's speakers with experience and good insights. I would like to proceed and finalize our meeting. Dear Leish, so proceed later on about our workshops. Dear participants, if it's possible, please write. If you need to, please write questions. We will later on send to our speaker panelists. Dear Liz, yeah.
Yes, so as Giedra said, after today's webinar, we'll send the presentations and the recordings to everybody, and also the links for the upcoming workshops that we will have. So in 22 of April, in 2 weeks, we're going to have focus in the US and Canada. And then on 6th of May, it's going to be specifically about South Baltic region. If you scan the QR code, you can follow our LinkedIn page for our project, and then you can keep update with the next steps of the project. Last but not least, all this information is also going to be shared at the ICN Solutions, which is a platform that will be updating throughout the project, where we can also find funding opportunities, potential partners to develop activities together, not only in the South Baltic region, but as I said, EU, non-EU markets. So we have around now approximately 600 members, all coming from the ICN network, which is the network of clusters around the world. We have 23 clusters as a member of ICN. So you can take a step ahead and also scan the QR code and register yourself in the platform and explore the opportunities there. And last but not least, here are our contacts, each one from a country. You have my contact over there, and also from Germany, from our partner Baltic Net Plasma Tech. Poland, we have Naturif, Jasmina. Lithuania is Giedros, who also from the Klaipėda Science Park, who also hosted today's webinar. And then Sweden, we have 2 points of contacts from 2 different clusters. One is Carolina from Open Tech, and then Astrid from Sustainable Business Hub. So please reach out to us in case of anything. And thank you for today. And I wish you all a pleasant day, a very nice and warm day, whatever you are.
Thank everybody. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.